So, when we look to the use of our senses, we are using our senses to gather information from the world around ourselves. But not only from the world around ourselves, also from what's happening sometimes with our physical body and inside ourselves. Kind of are looking inside sometimes. Looking inside, we are not using the physical eyes. And also listen inside what's happening. We are not really using the physical ears, except when you hear that there's a bowel movement or something like this going on. So, when you look to this, then you see that basically what we say is looking or listening. It has two aspects. It has the physical aspect, what we objectively, the light which is falling into our eyes, which is translated to the brain as a picture. But then looking is much more, as only seeing this picture. And the same is for listening. In daily life, we are used to rely on our eyes a lot. And we are not so used to rely on our ears, what we hear. And so when we look to listening, the first level of listening is of course hearing sound. But then when we talk about communication between people, listening often is quite difficult. It's really difficult for us to hear each other. It's often when we listen to what another person is saying that automatically our brain is working and we are just waiting for a little pause so we can tell our story. So we're more kind of listening to our own thoughts, listening to the pause, listening to whatever we want to bring forward as listening to the other person. So when we move to listening and real listening, what is needed is the background of listening, the background of sound, the background of hearing. So when we look to the background of sound, it's silence. It's only when there is some silence inside we're able to listen. When there is too much turmoil, too much sound inside, which basically is not physical, but we're not even able to listen physically. And then, when we really want to understand the meaning of what we hear, we need more space as only silence. Silence is creating space, but basically we need more space to really hear what another person is saying. It means that we must be able to replace ourselves in the other person. When you're listening to another person or to music in a way that you replace yourself in the music or you replace yourself in the other person, emptiness is coming forward. If you really listen to music and you replace yourself into the music, music becomes alive. It's not a tone and another tone and another tone and another tone or a nice melody, but it's something which is moving by itself, alive. And the space we need inside and outside for this is brought forward again by emptiness. To really replace yourself in another person. To not only hear the words, but try to understand what's behind the words. Again, emptiness is coming forward. So if we really listen to the sounds around ourselves, we get impressions. It's one of our senses. And basically what our senses are doing is they're focusing awareness, consciousness, perception through emptiness. So it makes it interesting to kind of focus on who is listening, what is listening. And if we're really listening and we let go of the agenda, this question becomes even more interesting. What is listening? Just turn around and kind of look, watch the listener.
What can happen when we move to this space of the question, who is the listener? Is we're deepening our receptivity, because listening is very much about allowance. It's kind of choiceless. Meaning, we think with our minds that we're listening to the air condition and focusing. But anyway, we are hearing all the other sounds at the same time. We are receiving them also. With our minds we select to consciously attend to one sound, but in our helplessness, even the most distant sounds are vibrationally touching us, as well as the most intimate sounds. What can come forward out of this is a fear, because there's so much. And the fear shows as a kind of resistance, denial, and not to listen, not to receive. So this layer of resistance, this close down, in a way, is a vibrational close down. It's a resistance generated by ourselves, born of fear, which ultimately keeps us separate. It's not rational. It's based on the belief that if we were to allow all the vibrational frequencies and sounds that are here now, to allow it, and anyway they are here now, then we might lose control in our minds. This is a fear, it's an illusion. Why is it an illusion? Because in this area of listening is the greatest stability possible ever, also to the mind, also to the individual, also to any group. Why is it so safe? As long as we're caught in the belief that there is this person, you, listening, and there is this sound coming from outside, in this case my voice being heard too, we're caught in a split, in a duality. There is the one making a sound, at the origin of the sound, and there is the one who is hearing it, vulnerable in a way, forced to listen. This is a split, it's artificial. The split only exists in the layer of now I'm speaking and then you speak. This surface physical interchange. But in the listening, there's a unity. There's always a unity. I hear the voice coming from me in a total unity with you. Everyone hears the air condition in an instantaneous unity before they even get a look in with consciousness. We think that when we're in a conversation, the one who's speaking is in one role and the one who's listening is in the other. But actually, there is a unity in the listening. The whole conversation, regardless of which one is speaking at any moment, is listened to by both as one. What they do with it afterwards with their minds is another story. It's heard by both. It's witnessed on the audio level. It's heard. It's heard from something where the speaker and the listener and every molecule is actually in a unity. And it's not other, this one that listens. It's at the core of who we are. It's the strongest place. It's the container. So when we meet a resistance to allowing sound, the most artful thing to do with that resistance is to listen to it. You can listen to the resistance. You can listen to an area of pain. You can listen to the silence. It has different sounds. It's still silent, but there is a movement in silence when we fully allow the listening to the silence. And of course, in the listening, there's the possibility that we open that incredibly liberated space of the listener, where it's not an individual anymore listening, it's not an I, it's not a private person. You can become the listening. Without giving up anything local, without giving up thoughts, without giving up your right to speak, without giving up your choice to select between listening deep inside the body to your own breathing or listening to the far distance. All of this is there at the same time. But being that universal listening or listener allows all the relative positions. It gives freedom. Of course, listening is very much about vibration. And vibration is intimately about being here, in freedom. Where we resist what is here, we suffer and we isolate ourselves simply because the resistance creates a contraction, a barrier. We lose our naturalness, we lose our freedom. There's, for example, quite a difference between resisting feeling a physical pain and allowing ourselves to listen to it or to experience the vibrations of it or to even be curious about the rhythm of it. One is deeply healing, the other isolates the pain, contracts it further, and in a way demonifies it, it makes it other, which is opposite of healing. When we listen to the rhythm of the pain of the pain begins to synchronize with the rhythm of the whole body, which is a healthy body. The whole body, when we listen to its rhythms, begins to synchronize with the rhythm of the environment, which is still a healthy environment, with nature, with the sky, with the wind. With a whole infinite array of rhythms which are beyond our consciousness, but with which we are attuning all the time, of which we are part, which we're made of. To put it in the language of I am here, the movement from the visual, which often we can have visions when we listen because it's an effect of vibration, the seeing. But the movement from the visual faculty of seeing to the vibrational faculty of listening is a movement from consciousness to awareness, from head, witnessing, to heart, feeling the vibrations, allowing the vibrations. From active creation to receptivity, which is always a deepening of creativity, to the allowance of what is, not the dictation of what should be, what we want to be. From illusion to something much more true, much more loyal, much more authentic in the layer of experience, much more alive. Much more at cause. So in listening, we're not so much interested in the effects, meaning the content of what we hear. We're more interested in the cause, the origin of sound. What's behind? What's the continuum? What's at the cause of the miracle of a simple vibration? What makes it possible? What sets it free? What sets us free?
So the meditation. So first I'd like you to sit down as relaxed as possible. And then I'd like you to kind of move inside yourself and see if you can find a place which is comfortable or peaceful, silent. And just settle yourself inside this place and try to relax as much as possible to this place inside yourself, or maybe around yourself. And then I'd like you to focus on the sense of hearing. And in focusing on the sense of hearing, I'd like you to not so much focus on any sound or anything you hear around yourself, but to focus on stress, or closeness, or being closed of your hearing. And try to relax your hearing as much as possible to open it up. Unconditional for whatever sound is coming forward. Just try to connect with openness of the hearing. And then you can make a movement after a while by really intensely focusing on one sound. Like the air conditioning, or a sound you hear outside, traffic, whatever. Or a sound inside. You just focus for a period really strongly on one sound. And then you try to open up again, to unfocus. Just open the hearing as much as possible. And you can kind of move in between those two for a couple of times. And after that, I'd like you to reconnect with silence again, or space inside yourself, and just let happen whatever happens. That's the meditation. Take around half an hour, and after that there will be some music.